call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting of the East Troy School District Board of Education and all other meetings of the board are open to the public in compliance with state statute. Notice of the meeting has been sent to the media and/or has been publicly posted in an attempt to make the citizens of the district aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda's approved. And the minutes of the December 16th regular meeting.
Move the approval of the minutes from the regular December 16th, 2024 regular board meeting.
Second.
Any discussion, changes? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Public participation. Is there anybody that would like to speak tonight? Okay. Move on to the financial report.
Move the approval of December 2024 payments in the amount of $1,901,379.30 and receipts in the amount of $1,087,310.47 as reflected on the financial statements.
I'll second.
All right, discussion, questions?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion action items. First one, presentation of the audit report.
Yes, I'd like to welcome Kevin Bourne, Audit Manager with Kerber Rose Accounting Firm. Kevin is our Senior Manager for our audit that the district is required to have done each fiscal year. And I'll turn it over to Kevin and he can tell you more about the audit.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. So I'm just going to start out quickly. Do you have copies of the audit report?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to start with the independent auditor's report on page 1. I'm going to draw attention to the second paragraph, which states our opinion. Just going to read that real quick and then I'll explain it. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the district as of June 30th, 2024, and the respective changes in financial position for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So this is an unmodified or clean audit opinion. It's basically the highest opinion that we can give and just states that we didn't find any issues. There wasn't anything that needed major correcting. It's always good to have a clean opinion. Next, I'm going to jump to page 5, which is the district-wide statement of activities. So this shows the expenditures and revenue for the year. And near the bottom there, there's the change in net position. So in the current year, the net position increased by about 2.7 million. Prior year, it increased by about 2.8 million. So all in all, fairly comparable to the prior year. Next, I will jump to page 8. This is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the governmental funds. So your main fund is the general fund. And that one near the bottom, you can see the net change in fund balance. So that increased by about 700,000 this year. In the prior year, it increased about 2 million. That's the main change for that was largely just the federal sources. You didn't get used all your ESSER funds, and those are pretty large grants in the past few years. So just with those going away, revenue was down a little bit. And then there weren't any major expenditure increases that changed things. Your special education did increase a little bit. That was one of the main increases, but otherwise, most things were fairly comparable to prior years. The other funds wasn't really anything too exciting in any of those. Your debt was normal payments. The non-major funds there overall pretty similar to the prior year. And speaking of the other funds, I'll jump to page 46. So this is the combining statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So these are just all your other funds that are shown in the total on page 8 there. So again, everything was fairly comparable to the prior year. Nothing really drastic that needs to be pointed out or anything. So going down then, I'll jump to page 51. So this is the independent auditor's report on compliance for your federal and state programs. So this one again, the second paragraph there. In our opinion, the district complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct material effect on each of its major federal and state programs for the year ended June 30th, 2024. So basically, we didn't find any non-compliance issues. Everything was accounted for appropriately. Jumping to page 54 then, this is your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So these are all the federal grants that you received this year. And the second to last column is the total expenditures. And at the bottom there, your total federal expenditures this year were 1.1 million. Last year, you were at about 2.6. Again, the large change there was just with ESSER funds being used up. That was really the main difference in what led to your current expenditures being lower. Page 55 then is the schedule of state financial assistance. So for state grants, you had about $8.2 million. Last year was about 7.5. Overall, fairly comparable. Nothing drastic changed there. And then lastly, the other document you received is the management communication. So this one I'm just going to point out on the, I think it's the second or third page on page 4. The bottom of the first paragraph, we do indicate that we identified a deficiency in internal control. That's a significant deficiency. And that next paragraph is just describing that, and it's just the financial reporting. This is because Kerber Rose is the one who's actually putting the statements together. And I would say about 99% of our clients have this. So considering that this is your only significant deficiency, you didn't have any material weaknesses, that's pretty good. And really there's no way to get rid of that just with district your size. Like I said, pretty much all our districts, we prepare the statements. So that's pretty typical. And that's all I have to point out. So if there's any questions. All right, well, thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, next item, approval of donations.
There are 3 donations in the board packet. Let me start on page 49. The first donation is from WS and LS Fint. The donation was $100 to the East Troy Schools Angel Fund for food service. The next donation was from Mr. Michael Garber. The donation was $5,000 to the East Troy Community Schools Angel Fund. The third donation was from Mr. and Mrs. Gell and the Bingo Club. The $125 donation goes towards the East Troy Middle Schools Angel Fund for food service.
Make a motion to accept the donations as they were read.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor of approval, say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
open enrollment space calculation determination per policy 425.
Yes, so I passed out prior to the meeting a revised version. I made one small clerical error. You will note, the new one that I passed out to you has, under the additional services category of speech and language, a 3.8 FTE. The one I accidentally gave you said 4.0. We actually have 3.8 FTE, speech and language. So I want to point that out. So open enrollment every January, we come together and we set our open enrollment space calculation and determinations based upon where we are for our resident students. And so you have that information, but I do just want to kind of review some historical information so that you have some comparisons from last year to this year as you're like, what does this even mean, right? So your categories, we have early childhood. Let's start with Little Prairie. Early childhood and then 4K through second grade. Early childhood is starting off fairly similar in projections. There was 4 projected as a start. I will say it's capped at 12, so we have our playgroup model. So we have, for every one child with an IEP, we have one child without an IEP as a peer model. So we do keep those sections smaller, right? So we might only have 4 or 5 students with IEPs in each section, because then there's 4 or 5 students, and then that's a lot of littles with 8 kiddos in a section. So that is why that is decided in that capacity. We have a ton of referrals that come to us for early childhood potential programming through birth to 3 services and referrals. We have had a number of just parent referrals this year in both early childhood and our 4K through second grade. So as you look at that 4K through second grade, a couple of things to note. So last year projected enrollment 4K through second was 47 students. You'll see that pretty stark difference, an increase of 59. We did add, to jog your memory, we did add a special education teacher to Little Prairie. Katie Jeske is now servicing some students who have just more special education, like self-contained environmental programming needs, so that they can be in the classroom, and then if there's, dysregulation or times that they have specially designed instruction, they can receive that additional support in that environment. So we do have a large number of students. Like I said, we have had a ton of referrals this year, and just kiddos who are qualifying for just a number of reasons. I think, in the past, the board has often asked, like, what do you think? What do you think, right? So we are starting one impact potentially, right? We're kind of starting to see these kiddos who are between 4 to 5 years old, who they're now school-aged after being born through the pandemic. Like, is that one consideration? We have a number of kids who move into district, so there's just a number of things that happen. But I think it's important to note that difference. But I will say, I think in talking with Lindsay Harris and other staff, adding that additional FTE and just that option for our students with IEPs has been a game changer, honestly. So I think it has met the needs of our students extremely, extremely well. So I think we're really, really proud of that opportunity. And I will say, one of the things is that some students who we may have considered Lakeland School, for instance, as an alternative placement option because we may not have met the needs well enough before, we are now able to keep in district. So I'm really proud of that, and I think it's just speaks to our ability to meet the needs of kids in our own home district. So I think that's something that we can really appreciate and be proud of. Moving on to Prairie View, we have 3 teachers currently there. Projected enrollment last year was at 32. You'll see for next year, it's projected at 44 already. So obviously, cohorts move up. You have heard Mark and I talk, and Lindsay talk about that, you know, as these larger cohorts and students with more needs are moving through various grade levels, we just have to keep coming together to plan and program, and that is what we're starting to do at this point for Prairie View for next year, because we do have, you know, more students and more variability in student needs than we have had in the past, so we're trying to start to plan for that currently as well. Middle school for the start of this year was 28, so next year is projected at 30, similar. So we have had quite a few students move in, so you'll see that maximum capacity number reflective of, I've tried to take some historical data into consideration of like how many kids do we really have that are transferring in every year that are resident students, and we do have quite a few, right? So just we have to leave space for our own students and within the district to move in, so that's what that really maximum capacity number allows for. And if they move in and they're above the capacity number, you'll see that's what happened at Prairie View, right? Like we're above really what we would like to see, which is what the talks are in considerations right now. High school cohort, large cohort is moving out, so that's reflective of that number. So this year we started at 66 approximately. That backs down to 43. Again, though, that 4.0 FTE, I will point out, is the addition of our transition, like special education / transition coordinator. So that person who is Jen Lander, she doesn't hold, like the others typically hold it like 15 to 17 in a caseload. She might caseload maybe 6 to 10 students because she has additional transition service responsibilities. So that's where that 4.0 gets a little bit tricky. And then you'll look at additional services, speech and language, OT, PT. Speech and language is broken up, whether it's primary, secondary impairment, or related service. So in comparison, it's about 10 less for students with primary, secondary impairments, and similarly for related service. So, you know, what I also try to take into account per policy, right, which as we look at open enrollment calculations is, you know, DPI does not dictate what a caseload is for special education teachers or for itinerant therapy staff either. So what I really tried to do was take a look at other districts in terms of caseload size, what DPI's recommendations are. There's formulas and matrix and things like that. So these are all consistent with some of those pieces. So if you have further questions about that, I can certainly answer any specifically, but you'll see OT, that is slotted for 2 full-time FTE OTs, and then we have 1 full-time physical therapist in the district, which is about status quo. Questions? Essentially what I'm saying is I have 0 spaces available for open enrollment for the 25-26 school year with IEPs, correct.
I move the approval of the special education open enrollment space at 0 as it was presented.
A second.
All right, discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Amanda. School board candidacy for April 1st, 2025.
Notice is hereby given that a spring election is to be held in the East Troy Community School District on Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. The following office is to be elected to determine the 2 candidates to be on the April 1st ballot for school board member. The list below is in the order to appear on the spring ballot. Adam Witkowitz, incumbent, and Dale Ames. A description of the school district boundaries can be obtained from the school district office.
choose Board of Canvassers for the February primary. We don't need that?
So we don't need that, no, it was put on because the agenda
case.
had to be done before the deadline for filing.
Okay. Overnight field trip request.
Please excuse my voice.
Excused.
You have two overnight field trip forms that I put in your spot tonight. One is for, let's start with Key Clubs. They yearly go to Decon, so they have done this for a number of years. This year it's up at Blue Harbor. It's a leadership and service workshop. It'll be March 14th through the 16th. Both of the chaperones are school employees, Shannon Venegas and Kathy Robb, and they'll take approximately 15 students. And then the second one we have is for Ryan Mansky. This is in anticipation that over break, they have a trip to Missouri planned. You guys have approved that overnight field trip. Usually we host that. It is in Missouri. So this overnight field trip in Houston is in anticipation that students will qualify for the big Hunch Review in Houston. So it's possible that we don't qualify, but we just want to be prepared because I think, and I'm hopeful that we will. So that is the Hunch overnight field trip down to Houston. Any question?
Make a motion to approve the two field trips, March 14th through 16th for Key Club and April 6th through 12th for the Hunch trip.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You got more?
Yep, I have one more. Our cheer team
sorry.
has qualified for the 2025 AmeriCup Cheer Championship in Universal Studios, Orlando, Florida. This is a trip that they typically take every year. It is from February 5th to February 11th. They will be flying to Orlando. They've been doing fundraisers. I know we had two big cheer events the last couple months that they have used to help raise funds to offset the cost for our cheer team to travel to Orlando.
Shall I amend my motion?
Just make separately.
Okay. Move the approval of the cheer trip to Orlando, February 5th through 11th.
I'll second that. Discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks,
Sorry,
Brian.
I thought you were the next thing.
Next item, high school course pathways.
I will preface this presentation with this is incredibly exciting. So we have been working on these pathways behind the scenes for 2 years now, and I think it's important to highlight that anything that is in these pathways is nothing new. It's really just marketing and communication. So I will start with a little story of what happened today, and then Taylor will take over and talk to you about the details of the pathways. Got a phone call today about 2 o'clock. Left a message, I called him after school. It was a dad that is very interested and has heard excellent things about our STEM programming. His son is moving to the area to be with him, relocating to be with his father, and is very interested in nuclear engineering and has looked at our course planning guides and thinks that we are feels that we are very strong in our STEM programming. So that was very uplifting. It was a good 3 o'clock, 3:30 phone call, right? Well, it's great about these pathways. If you could look at your pathways, we have an ACE pathway. So we'll talk to you about some details with that and the partnership. But it's architecture, construction, and engineering. So I was able to send him this flyer that outlines the suggested coursework, the accreditations and certifications you can receive with interest in the ACE pathway. And then on the back is some testimonials from previous students. One is now at UW Platteville majoring in engineering, and the other is in a plumbing apprenticeship. So it's a really great way to highlight what we have for students in regards to their areas of interest. The other one that I sent to the gentleman today was the liberal arts and sciences. This is essentially a pathway for students that are looking to attend a 4-year university afterwards, which you would be if you were interested in nuclear engineering. And you can earn up to 43. This is Taylor did the math on this. All of this credit goes to Taylor. If you take our AP courses in sequence, you can earn 43 transferable credits. So we've talked about students in the past between 30 and 35. 43 is the max, which would account for $17,200 in college tuition if you take advantage of all of the AP coursework here. And on the back of that sheet, it tells you what your 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade courses would be. So just an example to start of how we intend to use these pathways as a communication tool and resource for our students and families.
So like Stacy said, these have been in the works for a while. We've been doing a lot of research, a lot of conversation and planning about what pathways and how to explain to students what this is. I think the key piece Stacy said earlier, which is like, it really doesn't change what we do, right? We've always met with students, their families, talked to them about their course planning, their future goals, and created schedules based on that. The goal of this is to really clarify for students and families kind of the direction they may want to be looking, so that when they walk into that meeting with school counselors or their resource teacher, they have an idea already and they're not just walking in blind. Kind of gives them some guidance and to help kind of push those pieces along. So we identified 5 specific areas. So the health sciences, ACE, information technology, and business. Those 4 in particular were identified based on both student interest, but also need of the area. What are different and growing career paths in our area that students may be interested in going into. We identified students who we felt kind of followed those general pathways throughout the last couple of years of graduation and reached out to them to see if they'd be interested in being part of these promotional materials, all of whom agreed and sent us quotes about their experience here at East Troy High School. We worked with the school counselors and Gateway Technical College and our departments to determine the most appropriate course pathways. We've been in communication with UW-Madison to talk about which of our transcripted credit courses transfer. We picked Madison because typically they're the pickiest, right? If it transfers there, it pretty much transfers everywhere. So we worked with them on some of those transferable pieces. And so all of these are different areas that we felt like were very good focuses for our students. I want to highlight the business associate degree pathway quickly. There are 2 associate degrees represented on that pathway, one in business management and the other in accounting. And we have had 2 students, including Brady Orlowski, who's on this flyer, who have earned their associate's degree in business before graduating high school. And so we wanted to make sure that that was known, right? That that's possible for students and families who may be interested in that. So on the back, again, it has that course pathway outlined, which includes quite a bit of Start College Now courses. And we do note that they will also have to pay a little bit out of pocket in order to attain an associate's degree, but really unheard of for most students to be able to get their higher education degree while still in high school. So we wanted to highlight that that is possible here. We've had students do it. Finally, before I pass it back to Stacy to talk a little bit about our partnership in the ACE pathway, I want to talk about the Explore Your Options one. So this is a little different than the other 5. So as we had many conversations about these pathways, a question that often came up is like, well, what if they don't know, right? We're dealing with adolescents who maybe have no idea when they start their freshman year of high school what they want to do. And we want to be clear that not every student is going to be in one of these pathways, right? These are just kind of clarifying pieces of some of the programming that we offer. But for those students who really have no idea and are not sure what they want to do at all, we've designed these 2 years worth of courses to really walk them through a variety of electives in almost every department area so they get a wide exposure. And then hopefully the goal being after their sophomore year, they may be able to narrow their focus a little bit and identify which of those areas they'd like to explore further.
So with the ACE pathway, have you heard of AGC? AGC is the Association of General Contractors that oversees Wisconsin's general contractors. It is a union. I'm going to be very transparent. It is a union organization, but they do a lot of work with non-union contractors too, and supporting schools and just promoting architecture, construction, and engineering. So we had them in. It was a connection that Katie Groff from Gateway helped us establish as we worked with Gateway to establish these pathways. So they came in, and my goodness, these two gentlemen and I, we speak the same language, and Taylor had to kind of rope me in because pretty soon we are back in the wood shop, and they're talking about finding funding through some donors that they have to build a whole nother construction lab out there to build these big garages. I don't know if you know me very well. That's my jam. I like that. So we're not doing any of that yet, but we have started a partnership with this AGC, and they helped us create the ACE pathway. And along with this pathway comes a hands-on experience where people will come in and help our students. They gave us some really great resources. If you could look at the engineering pathway, they provided us feedback that students that are going to be engineers need to get down into the construction classes or drafting classes and get some of that hands-on experience if they're interested in the construction side of engineering. So it's a really powerful partnership that we just have started, looking to host in the spring a luncheon with local businesses and some larger construction firms around the area to really help our students make that connection to the real world application of education, if you will. So we're very excited about that partnership.
Nice job on these. This is really good stuff. And just looking through some of these pathways, I zero in on the engineering one because being an engineer and having hired college students, a lot of them will have this type of experience that is offered here at East Troy with the labs that are available, the AP courses, the advanced courses, and I'm sure that it holds true in all these other fields. But this is the kind of stuff that you look for like co-ops and internships, and then obviously you get your foot in the door for actual, real job industry stuff after you graduate, whatever program you're in. So it's just another example, and I appreciate you guys really highlighting for how big East Troy is. We really pack a punch when it comes to preparedness for what comes afterwards. So thank you for putting this together.
Totally agree. This is just fantastic. It's nice to see it all together as marketing materials, which is something I know we've all talked and you've all been talking about for a while. So this is excellent. So go a long ways in helping getting students involved.
So I had a question. I was actually talking through these with my kids who are freshmen and sophomore. So am I correct in understanding if it's an AP class, it's got to be in term 1 and term 2 because the exam's in term 3?
Very interesting question. So, currently, right now, yes, that is true. You have to take your AP classes in Tri 1 and Tri 2 because the exams are in May. What we are looking to do for next year is we have asked the AP teachers, are there any courses, that could run Tri 2 and Tri 3? The benefit to teachers volunteering, it would have to be a course that the content was able to be shaved by 2 weeks. That could be really hard. It's not going to be AP US History. Not possible, right? They need those 2 extra weeks. But there may be some, maybe AP Human Geo, maybe an example, that could be shrunk a little bit and still maintain the fidelity or validity of the course and then be offered second and third try. So we're looking at staggering that within our schedule.
What kind of guidance are you giving students per how many AP classes to stack up in one trimester?
Really depends on the kid. So it's super dependent on the kid. You'll notice at the bottom of each of the course pathways, it talks about like meeting with your counselor, right? Like reach out to your counselor, schedule an individual meeting. And all of these course pathways are labeled as suggested, right? There are some students for whom this won't be the path that they take, like the list of courses, though they may be in the pathway. So a student may be heavily interested in health services, for example, but maybe they don't want to take 2 to 3 AP courses a year. That is okay. This is just suggested. So it really will be a collaboration with the student, the counselor, and their parents. And the key piece of this pathway being like, we've identified those students for whom we need to have those conversations with.
I will also say that while our AP courses at East Troy are very rigorous and our pass rate, as we've presented, is very high, our teachers are very accommodating. So we do really encourage students to take advantage as much as they feel they are able to, we don't want anybody completely stressed out, or very few students will take 4 or 5 AP classes. But like 3 is kind of a hot spot. We have a lot of kids that take 3. Some kids take 1 as a stretch, right? A stretch course, we call that. But you will have some students that will take advantage of 4 at one time.
Well, and it's interesting that I think you mentioned AP Hug as like a tough one to like double up on or whatever. It's interesting that students would typically take that freshman year and maybe be then scared of taking too many AP classes in later years after that experience, just because is a very onerous class for them.
Yeah, plausibly, like hat switch, right? Like my own daughter's in AP Human Geo right now and loves it, right? So I think it really depends on the kid. That's really opened the door for her to feel like she can do AP coursework. So in her situation, it maybe has done the opposite, has opened the door for exposure to continue on that pathway. So I think, to Taylor's point, it's all dependent on what kids are looking for.
Thank
But AP Human Geo is a really great course. And the 3-credit humanities course that we all had to take if you went to a 4-year college and check the box. Mine was art history or something. I had to memorize, Van Gogh. Remember, you had to do all the slides. And there was no computers at that time, so it was like slideshows. Remember that? We actually had to take real notes. That is your 3-credit humanities course. So you can take that freshman year at East Troy High School. You score 3 or above, 4 or above for Madison, I think. And that is your 3-credit humanities course. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And hence this. Like, we need to get all of this information out to people. We've been talking at you for probably 15 minutes now. It's a lot of information to communicate to students and families. And that's the point of this, is to try to make it easier and have resources to be able to do that.
I have one, I think, clear question and one that's a little more vague. The clearer question, is this the same materials that we would give to 8th grade to say you're going to start high school, so you're thinking about what courses you, or is there even like a modified version of?
No, we plan for this to be the
Yeah.
same material.
Okay. And then my less clear question, I was trying to formulate it, but I'm not. So I'm just wondering, I mean, every group of kids is different and it's probably really hard to plan, but I'm just kind of wondering, do we have a sense of, like, we're not going to have enough spots for certain things, or, and again, it would change year to year and cohort to like, I get that, but
So we
hot
don't
spots?
have a necessary, like, how many kids are going to
Yeah.
want to be in each of these,
Yeah.
right? We have the numbers of students who have selected career pathways of interest using our ACP program called Zello. So we have some of that information that gives us some idea, hence why we picked these areas of high interest. But we really don't. We're going to be opening this for current 9th graders, current 10th graders, and obviously current 8th graders. So those will be the ones who can kind of like opt in for this next year to be involved in the pathway. And we've discussed openly, like, okay, what happens if there's 35 of them?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
happens if there's 5 of them, right? So we have some contingency plans of what to do depending on enrollment. But we always make decisions based on
Right.
course selection, right? That's how the schedule gets made.
Right.
So we have the ability to make those changes as needed.
And, oh, go ahead.
We've also talked with departments and Gateway about that. So if you wanted to go get an associate, any associate level degree, so an associate's of welding, right? Any associate level, you would have to take an English class, right? You have to check that. Well, our AP language and composition, which is a junior level AP class, checks that box. So we've talked to English about, we really anticipate that once these pathways are released, that more students will take that. So currently we have 2 sections this year. It usually varies between 2 and 3 sections, and 2 to 3 sections of regular junior English. We anticipate that that'll change, that AP numbers will go up. And that.
Because they might as well do it, get it done. Yeah.
Right, and then with better communication, more students will say like, well, I'll do that then. I'll do that. As they should, if that is best for them.
Right.
That's how I'll say that.
I think it's my last question. Is it sounds to me like it's not a thing that you're saying, like, I'm enrolling in this pathway, I'm going to do these 20 classes for sure. It's a guide.
Correct. Not a mandate.
Yeah, okay. Just to be very clear. Okay.
The only other question I had was, so where then these are gonna be available to people through guidance? Is there gonna be, is there a eye towards getting this out for the general public consumption somewhere? Is it at least on the webpage, something
Put it in the
pointing to it?
newspaper.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that they get on the website, and I'll let Taylor talk about that. What I have been digging into is, kind of divide and conquer. What I've been digging into is a videographer. Because ideally, we would have these students come back and be involved in a little minute to minute and a half clip that talks about everything that's on this flyer that we then put on our website, and students and parents and families can watch the videos.
No.
Yeah, it is a work in progress. We're figuring out the how and the who and the when, and the where of putting these for sure. Our webpage, right? They'll get released certainly to our families, but we made this with the intent to share, to make sure that people are aware of the things that we have available in East Troy, as we have for many times talked about open enrollment, right? And this is one of those things that we believe could help with open enrollment, not just at the high school level, but at every level, just by promoting our district.
We are going to use grant money to print these on shiny paper. I think that is important as part of marketing.
Thank you.
I started listening and was like, oh, there's only a few and it feels kind of limited, and like, I don't know, I just had a certain feeling, and right, I have 3 kids. I don't know what any of them will be when they grow up, like truly. They appreciate the sampler platter of everything. They are interested in everything all the time, always. And I know this is just a guide and all of that, but sometimes you see labels and it's like, oh, and you spoke to if I don't see myself in a label. But I also think some of the wording is interesting because it almost feels like, well, I kind of feel adjacent to this, so this will be, this is a helpful path for me to maybe kind of skim along, because I maybe don't see myself like completely jumping into being a nurse, but this feels kind of close, so this will give me some guidance. Does that make sense? Like,
Absolutely, and that is the Explore Your Options pathway. I mean, really, that truly speaks to that. I mean, we do have students in 8th grade, or even really that are in high school, that say, I have no idea what I want to do. So this is like a sampling, if you will, of different areas, because it is plausible that you take art foundations or an ag class or a business class. Take one of
I think it's
everything, and like, ooh, I didn't like that. I tried that business class and looking at a computer and sitting still for 70 minutes. That's not me. Well, then hopefully you'll notice that that's just 9th and 10th grade. The idea is that we don't live here. This is a place we visit, and then hopefully by 11th grade, we have a little bit more of a direction of what we're interested in. But that was some feedback that we got from teachers and parents through developing these, hence that option as well.
I mean, I know a lot of college freshmen that are undeclared. Like, they really just don't know. I mean,
I will say, the academic and career planning, you don't need to know what you want to be when you grow up, right? I stand for the freshmen and I always say, I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up. And they always look at me, they're very confused. But I think helping children find a direction is important. That is one of the main reasons that we're here as a high school. So we're very hopeful that by 12th grade, students at least have an idea of a pathway that they are interested in.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's great.
Come back here for a second. I do think it's important that we say this is a whole collaboration of the high school. This is not Taylor and Stacy. This is not us. We took it to the teachers. We took it to the PLC leaders, counselors. They gave us feedback multiple times. We took their feedback and Taylor put it in these very nice flyers. And I mean, it was a collaboration of many, many, many people. Gateway, lot of people. Just wanted to point that out. Taylor, Aaron, everybody. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, employee leave of absence request, that'll go into closed session. Reports. Dr. Hibner is still out on medical leave, so we'll move to Amy.
Yes, I can report on the financial audit as well as a few other audits that have been completed this fall. Kevin Bourne from Kerber Rose reported earlier on our financial audit, and it went really well. And I want to say I'm really glad Stacy and Taylor just presented on the pathways, because we're looking at the financials, but the more smooth we can make our processes, the more time and resources that can go more directly towards the student services, the courses, and that development. And they also mentioned their collaborative effort in developing the courses, kind of the same with our financials. It's a lot of people, from people placing orders, putting the correct account numbers on, accepting cash, keeping the correct documentation. That all works together to make a smooth audit and make sure our books are in order, and just makes the audit process smoother. So I just send a shout out to everybody involved, especially our business office, Cindy Brezma, who does our accounts payable, accounts receivable. We have Lynn Mayer in payroll, Jill Collins in benefits. They all work very closely to make sure our processes stay in order, communicate with the staff, gather a lot of things for the audit. So just like to send a shout out to a lot of staff who helped with the audit. And as you heard Kevin say, there was no findings except for the financial reports, which is typical in most districts. We just don't have the time and the accounting specialties, the CPAs on staff to prepare the financial statements. So we outsourced that to the auditors to do. That was the only findings, and everything went really smooth on the audit. The audit in of itself, I can tell you a little bit about the process. It starts in June with the preliminary audit. We work with them mostly remotely at this point. For preliminary audits, we send them a lot of documents. We'll send them board agendas, trial balances, journal entries, contracts, leases. We put this all in a portal that the auditors can look at. And then we do a few calls with them where they ask more questions about our processes. So that is in June with the preliminary audit. Then we take a break. We have the fiscal year end. We close the book, do the end of the year transactions. Then the auditors return in August for what we call the final audit. And there again, we have a long list of items we submit to the auditors, such as bank statements, accounting reports, benefit reports, etc. And they come on site. They come to our office between 3 days to a week. And they look at the documents we prepared. They ask for more items. They ask a lot of questions. They'll talk to different staff members. So that's about a week in August. And after that, they'll generally email me maybe once a week or so for a few months, and ask for additional items as well if they have questions or need clarification or more items. So it is a long process. And then the district submits reports to DPI. The auditors have to do the same. Our numbers have to match. And once everything matches and our reports are submitted, that's pretty much when the audit is closed and the financial statements are prepared and the audit report is finalized and distributed. So that's kind of the process of our audit. This year we also had a Medicaid audit because, as we talked about, our special education services keep increasing. And we received more than $250,000 in Medicaid revenue from Forward Health. So that singles a federal single audit because those are federal dollars. So that was part of our financial audit this year. Jill Collins had to prepare a lot of information. Our staff who work with special education students, as well as Jen Marson-Kavik, our special ed data manager. She had to pull a lot of information, such as IEPs and the students and which services they receive. So that was also a large part of the audit, which went really well. So that was our financial audit. And then it was a busy fall. We had 2 other audits. Our transportation department was contacted by the Wisconsin State Patrol. They are auditing transportation departments around the state, including the ones run by the school district. So she had to provide a lot of information and work with the state patrol officer. They look at our records on vehicle maintenance, look at our drug testing records, look at our processes and procedures. And there again, that went very well. There was the one suggestion with our drug testing, we need 2 separate lists. Our CDL drivers need to be kind of in a separate pool than our other fan drivers. So we are working on that. And we are working on getting our policy in guidelines with what the State Patrol suggested. Make sure we're within all the federal guidelines as well. And we'll be bringing that to the board probably within the next few months. And finally, our food service department had their administrative review this year. That's every 3 years the state comes in and looks at our food service department because we're a part of the National School Lunch Program. We receive federal money. So there again, there's a lot of guidelines for that program. And Andrea, our food service director, had to submit a lot of information on our menus, meal planning, purchasing, our staff, our free and reduced lunch applications and the process with that. That went really very well as well. And then they came back. This was Andrea's first year, so she just did an amazing job. Same with Rachel. It's her first time going through an audit. And it's her second year as food service director, the first time going through the audit. And the ladies were very impressed. They even want to kind of highlight her in some of their social media with School Nutrition Superhero of the Month as an example of how well that her food service operates and the job that Andrea is doing. So that's very good news. There was one suggestion with the food service too, with our unpaid meal policy, that we just refine it a little bit. So we are working on that and going to bring that to the board within the next few months as well. Are there any questions on all the audits and the financials?
You got
Too
a
bad
busy.
they can't stagger those a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
They all hit
All
the
at
same.
once. No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Amy.
Yes, in front of you, you should have an outline of the state assessment dates. So I will just run through them. We only have one difference from prior years. So Access Test is currently being administered. That is the assessment that is required for all students identified as English learners. They are assessed in 4 domains, including listening, reading, speaking, and writing. That window is open and will remain open until the 31st of this month. The new addition is the early literacy assessment per Act 20. So Ames Webb was selected as our early reading screener, assesses students in 4K through 3rd grade in the areas of alphabet knowledge, letter sound knowledge, phonemic awareness, decoding skills, and vocabulary. And so testing dates are included on the back of that page in a chart. Typically, the state will require the assessment to happen twice a year in 4K and 3 times a year in 5K through 3rd grade. This year, the fall window was waived as the state was still working out contract details with Pearson for Ames Webb. So we are in the mid-year window currently, and so this is our first go-round with the Ames Webb Plus administration. And so that window is open right now through the 31st, and then the spring window in legislation, it states that that window must be closed on or before the 45th day prior to the last day of school, which is actually April 22nd. That means that administration will have to happen prior to spring break because we are on spring break April 14th through the 21st. So we return on the 22nd. Then we have the Wisconsin Student Assessment System. That is made up of the forward exam administered to students in 3rd through 8th grade and then 10th in the area of social studies only. We have the pre-ACT Secure for students in grades 9th and 10th grade, and then the ACT for students in 11th grade. The testing dates are listed there as well. So on March 18th, our 11th grade students will take the ACT. As in years past, to accommodate the testing schedule, all other grade levels will be taking part in an asynchronous virtual learning day, so our juniors will be the only ones on site. March 17th through April 25th is the window for the Wisconsin Forward exam, so each building will set their own schedule within that window. Again, that the last part of that window will fall during our spring break, so that assessment will need to be completed almost prior to spring break happening. We only have 3 days upon return to make sure that everyone's tested. And then March 25th is the pre-ACT, which 9th and 10th graders will take. So they will report to school, and 11th and 12th will be doing asynchronous virtual learning that day. Any questions on our assessment calendar for the spring?
Nope. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Amanda?
So I just have a little update on our mental health agency collaboration, and I think it's really exciting because we continue to grow in this area too. So when I started, this is my 3rd year, we had 1. So we've continued to add, and just like every, I feel like mental health agency, there's always a shortage of staffing, unfortunately. So for a little recap, we started out when I began in 2022 with Clinical Psychology Associates. We had switched over to CPA that year. CPA is not any different than other agencies, and they've struggled with staffing. So they have, unfortunately, some of our students and families have been waitlisted due to that, especially at Prairie View middle school level. And high school as well. We have a list at Little Prairie. It really spans all schools. So in order to try to keep up with the referrals and needs that we have, we added, if you can remember, Guided Wellness as a partnership this school year. A little bit different in that Guided Wellness, part of our partnership with them is funded through 2 different grants. One has now expired, the Get Kids Ahead grant, which those monies were all used and utilized by the end of December. So we did expend all of those grant monies appropriately, that was a great use of our funds for some of that and some of the additional professional development and other allowable expenses within that grant. But also the school-based mental health grant has supported the continued partnership with Guided Wellness. So Guided Wellness works in 2 different ways, just as a recap. So they do offer, we have 1 therapist currently. She has been fantastic. I think everyone at LP would say if we could just clone her, that would be great. She's been a fantastic addition, and she's really just like a part of our team, because one of the things she does is she comes in and she comes in really as a consultant perspective. So she goes into classrooms, she talks with teachers, people service teams, families. She's kind of a liaison of that. Rather than, that's what's a little bit different than just CPA of they come in, which is great, right? That's the therapeutic session, is that one-on-one. But Eileen is able to kind of come in and say, here's what I see from like this holistic whole child perspective. And then she can make recommendations from that third-party agency perspective, resources with families, etc. So that has been hugely beneficial. And again, we pay for those consultation hours through those now school-based mental health monies. What we are doing currently, what I'm doing currently, is working through a sustainable plan for those dollars, because They are based on a biannual budget, right? And so we know the amount, and it's a per pupil amount every year. So you know approximately how much you'll get. So we know approximately how much we'll get 25, 26, 26, 27. From there, we don't know. So it's taking a look at, okay, so how many hours can she do consultation that we pay for with grant monies? How many, and then again, one-on-one therapeutic sessions are billed, private insurance, state insurance, et cetera. So those would not be dollars that the school district would pay for. Similar to how CPA does it, it goes through that. One caveat that I know Amy Jenquin and I are working through in moving forward is we do right now help assist with the payments of students who are uninsured or underinsured and what those costs are. So we do get billed currently for students that fall in those categories. So Amy and I are looking at what's the sustainable model of that. And we do have quite a few. So that does start to add up. So, you know, I have talked with various agencies around, okay, coming the 25-26 school year will likely put a different cap on that. CPA has an amount per session that they charge that I think is very reasonable. Actually, Guided Wellness, the owner, she told me I can't even pay my therapist for that amount. So it's not that it's excessive, but it's just a matter of like what are we able to contribute, because we want to ensure that students are getting the services that they need, right? So that we will continue to grow, and it's our hope that we'll add 1 or 2 therapists for the therapeutic one-on-one sessions into Prairie View and middle school. The rest of this year, starting to look at that into next year. So kind of growing that. And again, that comes down to availability of therapy providers on their end too. But then also we're excited and trying to, fill in where we have gaps. So we have added a 3rd provider now, which we're excited about. And so this comes as a result. State Line Mental Health Services is based out of Beloit. They come highly recommended in a lot of my networking with other local directors over the summer. So I had reached out, talked with many different providers over the summer as we were looking to add another agency, and that's how we landed at Guided Wellness. Some agencies didn't have licensed staff, so they could only take state-funded insurance, and we felt like that was going to be a barrier for some of our students, which is why we went the route we did. And then just out of the blue, it kind of really worked out. I had a pupil service meeting with district staff, and we were talking about, I need to reach back out to Kelly at State Line. And I came back to my office, and there was an email from Kelly saying, hey, I have a provider for you. Now, the caveat to that I have learned since was it's only someone that's interested in high school. So, but she's newly licensed. She may be willing to take on middle school next year. So I think maybe it's the hope that that could kind of be the piece in keeping CPA and State Line for middle high school, and then Guided Wellness largely for our elementary base. But there's going to be some variation of that. So we're excited. State Line starting just with us this month. So again, we'll continue to evolve and grow in this need as it comes. But thankful for the People Service team for kind of stepping up into supporting them, and all of the agencies for their partnership, because that's been really great. Not without challenge, but in the end, great. And then 2 plugs really fast. So we have a couple of People Service events coming up that we're excited about. So just want to reiterate, this Thursday we have a viewing of Screenagers, the elementary school age edition, and so that's free for families and community members to attend at Prairie View. Doors open at 5 p.m. The movie itself is about 55 minutes. It starts at 5:30. We have cookies and water, free child care, and the movie really is focused around the research and testimonials and impact that screen time, whether that's phones or iPads, etc., has on specifically in this elementary age students. They do have a series that is developmentally different, so we are exploring what does that look like for potential viewings at other developmental stages for students, and I know there's some collaboration that we're starting to have around that, so we're excited for that. So that's on Thursday, and then that's open to anyone at Prairie View, like I said. And then February 1st, it's a little bit smaller of a venue, but approximately 15 to 20 families are able to register, and we're having a consultant come and do it's basically a Love and Logic type of workshop on raising mentally strong kids. So Rob is currently a school counselor over in Lake Geneva. You're like, why didn't you just have your team do that? Yeah, some of our pupil service team is trained in Love and Logic. They have hosted those in the last few years. We're just bringing in someone with a little bit different spin on that. There'll also be a book that we will provide that will be purchased again through the mental health grant monies that we'll give to families in support of kind of ongoing education for families that do attend, but that does require registration. So that will be February 1st at the community center from 8 to noon. So that's my little plug for that. Does anybody have any questions around any of that?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. All right, that's all we have for reports. No policy review and development tonight. Communications announcements. Do we have
I
any?
have one more spin-off of Amanda's. This just went out today. The district is hosting actually a book study on the anxious generation. So it really does spin off the Screenagers. That book is essentially about the impact of phones and social media on children. So there will be 2 sessions. February 25th is really focusing on the decline of play-based childhood and education and how that affects our students, right? And then March 25th is so how do we respond? Both sessions are 5:30 to 7:30 here at the high school. Registration is required for that as well. So all of our information went out today to parents. And information will also be included in the February newsletters for each school.
This is good stuff. I hope people take advantage. Thanks.
Yeah, that book, The Anxious Generation, is a really good one.
Mhm.
I've gone through it a couple times, and especially at the end where they offer it's not just, you rah, put down your phones. It's actionable, specific advice for communities. When I read through it, that advice at the end, it was perfect for a community of our size too, for how everybody bands together and helps. So I would encourage people to look into that and these other activities as well.
Future items, anybody have anything? And I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session for discussion of an employee leave of absence request as provided under state statute 19.851C and 19.851F.
I'll second.
All right, roll call vote. Kevin?
Aye.
Adam? Anna?
Yes.
And I vote yes for a closed session.